Yeah, we get on the bus.
Whatever you want, you can go and get it done. You can drive on nights.
Okay, I'm recording you.
See the sun. Whenever you want, you can go and have.
Learn out.
Back a few years ago, I used to go in the woods by my house. But I recently stopped going, and you're about to learn why. So, the last time I went there was only a few years ago. I started off the walk. It only takes me about 10 minutes to get to the woods from my house. So I started the walk. So I got there, and I noticed something strange. Some of the trees had O marks on them. I didn't really find it too strange at that time, but now that I'm writing this, I do. So I started looking for a spot by a tree, because I would only sit by a tree and play my phone. So finally I found a spot by this big oak tree. I sit down and start playing. I don't know if I was just hearing things, but I thought I was hearing footsteps. Like footsteps in the woods. I thought it could be a deer, but then I got scared and thought it could be a bear. I tried to calm myself down and assure myself that it was not a bear. I continued playing on my phone. After a while, I got bored of playing on my phone, so I got off of it and went by the river. But something was strange. I looked over to the other side of the river and saw someone standing by a tree. I wanted to call out, but I was kind of scared. So I casually walked back, hoping the person didn't see me. I just went back to reading a book instead of playing on my phone because I already got bored of that. Eventually it got dark, so I headed home. I was in bed sleeping when all of a sudden I heard like a rock being thrown out my window. I lived on the second floor, so somebody could have not been knocking, so I guess it was a rock. I jumped out of bed and looked out the window, and nobody was there. Then I woke up an hour later to my dog barking. I calmed my dog down and went to sleep. Now, it wasn't until a week later when I went back to the woods. I totally forgot about the person that I saw. So once again, I sat by the tree and played on my phone. But all of a sudden I hear, "Hello?" Now this made my heart drop. I didn't know why, but it sounded like a woman saying hello. I started looking around and I didn't see nobody. I was kind of considering going, but I didn't really let that stop me. Hello? I didn't know what was happening. At this point, I didn't know which gender it was. So I put my phone in my pocket and started walking from the woods. When all of a sudden I look behind me and see the head of someone peering behind a tree. I could even describe the fear I felt at that moment. When all of a sudden the head dropped. And it was that moment that I knew that it was a lifeless head. And then a man popped up behind the tree and started chasing me with a gun in his hand. I ran back to the house. I was literally out of breath. But I wouldn't have told the story if a week later I was in my bed when all of a sudden I heard a rock being thrown out my window again. I saw an O mark on my window. Now I'm just genuinely confused because how could someone got out to the window? I live on the second floor. The only way someone can get up is if they grab a ladder, but we didn't have a ladder. And I'm pretty sure someone strange out in the woods wouldn't have one either. I told my dad and he suggested to call the police, but nothing else happened. I'll keep you updated on the story. Back when I was 14, me and my family went to this kind of resort place. We arrived there, and I realized that all the kids there weren't really my age. And considering that I was the only boy that was a kid in this kind of group that we went in, because on the other hand, I had my 3 sisters and my mom and my dad. So there was no kids there my age. So I wasn't having the greatest time, but I tried to make the best of it. But on the second day, I met this girl. She was playing at one of the arcades. I said hi. I greeted myself as Tom. And she said her name's Lissa. So we started hanging out. At first we started walking in the woods, but she started talking about weird, deep, dark stuff. About how she hated her family. And she likes the look of blood, whatever that means. I thought this girl could be wrong in the head or something. But then she said, "Can we go to your room?" I got excited, expecting the best case scenario. So we went to my room, and the weird thing is our family in this kind of resort place, we all had our own rooms, but in the same hotel building. So Alyssa told me to get the key, and I gave her the key. She ran ahead of me and went to the room and unlocked it. We started staying in the room, and I didn't know when to make a move or if to make a move. But this weird girl started talking about deep, dark stuff again. About how she wanted to kill her family. I'm not going to go deep into all the stuff she was talking about, but it was starting to creep me out. All of a sudden, she flicks open a blade. She says she thinks about using it on herself or people in the building. Then she asked me, "Do you want to use this on someone in the building?" I told her I had to think about it. Obviously, I wouldn't do that. But considering this girl's sinister behavior, I had to play it safe. And then about 5 minutes later, I told her that we should go back outside. I saw my parents ahead, so I said, "There's my parents, I'll see you later." She said okay and just looked at me as I went away. Oh yeah, one thing I forgot to mention. When I was with her that day, she would eye down people and not caring when they noticed, just looking into the deep parts of their souls. I just wanted to go to my parents if it meant getting away from that creepy girl. For the rest of the day, I hanged out with my parents. That night in bed, I was sleeping. All of a sudden, I heard a beep. And then I remember I never got my car back. I never got my key back from Lissa. All of a sudden, I hear a familiar voice say blood. I turn over and I see her standing at the foot of my bed. She says, "I need blood. Do you want to help me get blood, or do I have to take it from you?" I screamed like a little girl. I screamed so loud, you could probably hear it 2 miles away. At first, she just stood there. But when my dad bursted in, she ran out the window. My dad tried to chase after her, but I told him don't. She has a knife. This girl was scary in the head. We went to get some info on this Lissa girl. It turns out there was nobody named Lissa staying at the resort. Oh, there weren't even girls her age staying there. This led me to believe that it was just a random person. We called the cops, but they didn't really do too much. But from now on, when you meet somebody, make sure you always know that they have a home and they're not a stranger. But nothing has happened since, though. Back a few years ago, I used to work as a maid for this woman named Jill. I used to do stuff like dusting, sweeping, cooking, mopping, stuff that she couldn't do anymore. Jill was a 70-year-old woman. so she couldn't really do much. So that's why she hired me as a maid. One weekend, Jill asked me to stay over for a few nights. She had like 3 beds in the house, and she lived alone, so I figured why not. So I arrived there, and I noticed that her property is a little bit clean. She does have a big property, and it could be very clean if she would have kept it like that, but anyways. I get in the house, and I'm greeted by Jill at the door. I say, "What's up?" She slightly nodded her head. I went up to my room and unpacked my things. I hadn't really spoken to Jill for the whole day. But at night when I was about to go to sleep, I saw Jill by my door. I said, "What are you doing?" At first she didn't say nothing, but then she told me to straighten up the whole house. So I did that and went to sleep. But not even like 3 hours later. I didn't know what time it was, but we didn't really have smartphones back then, so I think it was about 10 p.m. Like 10 p.m. I heard footsteps up in her room. It's weird because there's no TVs in this house, so I don't know what she could be doing. All of a sudden, I hear a door close upstairs. Footsteps begin to pass by the room like very slowly. I didn't know what it could be, but I thought she could just be going to the bathroom. Our footsteps go all the way down to the first floor, and hear a door close. I assume that to be the basement. Now, Jill is very protective over her basement. It makes it very clear she doesn't want me going down there. About 20 minutes later, I hear footsteps again. They come up the stairs and stop right outside of my door. I sit up and listen. Begin to hear the doorknob wiggle. I heard her hurry up and lay down and fling the sheets over me. I heard Jill take a few steps to my room, pause, and leave. And I heard her go back up to her room. This was very bizarre behavior. I didn't know what to do, so I waited a few minutes, made sure the coast was clear, and went downstairs into the basement. The stairs were creaky as heck. But when I got to the first step, this is when my heart was in my stomach. I saw 2 rotting dead bodies sitting on chairs with men's wigs on them. I really don't know anything about decaying bodies, but I would say these bodies had to at least be 20 years old. All of a sudden, my heart was in my stomach even more when I heard footsteps on the first floor. I didn't have enough time to make the light switch. I hurried up and ran behind the couch. I heard Jill take a few steps down the stairs. When she took the last step, she whispered my name. I knew she wouldn't be too fast to catch me, so I ran upstairs, got my bags, and ran out. When I got to the first floor, Jill was at the top basement step. I ran all the way off her property and back into my car. I took a deep breath, looked back, and saw Jill standing at the front doorstep. I drove off. Unfortunately, I never gave her any of my contacts, so she couldn't contact me ever again. I'm glad I got away. There was something clearly wrong with that woman, and I'm just happy I made it out in time. I think one of those corpses was her dead husband, who she had mentioned to me twice, but for the little one, I really don't know.